Hey, and welcome to Unfiltered Therapists, a podcast run by Kindred Roots Therapy Inc. We are here to have real-ass conversations about all things mental health, self-care, relationships, and wellness. No more being filtered. Let's get right to the point. Let's do this. Hello.
Hello.
I'm so excited that we are finally recording this. For everyone listening, I have Jaime McClintock with me today. Jaime is on our team as the life business purpose coach. The title never really seems to fit quite what the role is. But if you've been following Kindred Roots for a while, you are familiar with Jaime because Jaime has been in and out of Kindred Roots in so many facets since the conception of Kindred Roots as a whole. For anyone who's new to Jaime, Jaime is actually my cousin / soul sister. It feels weird to call her just my cousin too. Oh my goodness, we've done lives together in previous Kindred Roots pre-podcast life about business. Jaime is single-handedly the business coach that started teaching me as a social worker how to even have a business and do the private practice. Anyone who comments like, oh, I love your website. How did you do it? How did you do this? It's all Jaime. Jaime has been the hand behind all of it. And about a year ago, I was privileged enough to be on the opposite end where Jaime wanted to make a life change and go more into the coaching realm. And now is with us, not only doing the business side of things, but coaching as well, and is a member of the Kindred Roots team as a whole. So it's been a beautiful little roundabout transition in. I feel like introducing you is next to impossible because you have like so many facets of your personhood. Jaime is a little woo-woo, which we love, and you're definitely going to hear some of this today. But she is also a multipreneur, we're going to call you. She has been running a water ski school with her husband for, oh my gosh, how many years now? 8, 10?
Yeah, long time.
Along those lines. Girlfriend's never water skied, by the way, so this is also always a super fun part to the story. She's a very successful real estate agent. She has been in the wedding planning industry, the restaurant startup industry. I don't even know how to group this all together, but you are just kind of like a unicorn of a person.
Aw, I love that. I appreciate that so much. It's so touching to hear that. I've like loved being a part of your journey, and even if I just simply got to sit on the sidelines and watch everything that you've created, I'm like, can't even express how proud I am of everything you've done.
Oh, stop. I feel like getting to where we got to now was inevitable. And again, for anyone that's followed along for a long time, we've previously partnered on a company called Bossy Pants, and maybe there's more to come in that department. Dun, dun, dun. But ultimately, I think we always knew that we were going to end up working together in some capacity. We've just been doing it in much more informal places before this. That is going to lead into a really cool topic for today. So, as I just stated, Jaime lives a very cool life that's like a little bit in the like logic, clinical woo-woo, and a little bit in the like full woo-woo energy, astrology, crystal girly vibes. And as her and I were just working together in personal life stuff, it became very apparent that there's a really interesting intersect between like clinical therapy and energy work and other forms of healing. And so when Jaime joined Kindred Roots, we decided to try and combo the two, and it's been so fulfilling and interesting. And so we thought today this topic would be about what that even looks like, what we mean, how these things play together, and a little bit of like an introduction to human design. So I feel like I would be doing a disservice if I explained any further than that on this topic. So why don't we start with like the generals? What the F is human design, Jaime?
Yeah, so human design's definitely been having a moment over the years, and it is a relatively new modality for self discovery, for learning who you came here to be, how to stay in alignment. And yeah, so I mean, as a system itself, it was created in 1987, actually, by a guy who was born in Montreal, Canada. So pretty close in our neck of the woods. But he essentially had been learning a lot of different ancient systems. And then he ended up having this epiphany moment where he realized how much they really blended together. He was able to channel an entire synergy of how they all work. And essentially, the it's just a good blueprint for who did you come here to be? How do you know when you're in alignment? What were you meant to do? What are your gifts? What are your challenges to overcome? What type of energetic personality do you have? And so there's a lot of things that this can actually roll into. And so it blends everything from astrology, astronomy, quantum physics, quantum mechanics, the Chinese I Ching system, the Hindu chakra system, Kabbalistic teachings, and then it has even a spinoff of like biochemistry and genetics through an entire different like gene keys aspect that was birthed out of one of his students. So it really has become very mobile. And as people are able to enter this field, they're realizing that they can adapt this from everything to how to get to know yourself, how to help parent, how to, relate in partnership. It really comes down to the science of differentiation. And what I loved about it is that it shows us that we're not all the same in a culture, in a climate where we're constantly conditioned to fit into boxes and check certain things off and look a certain way and act a certain way. It really gives language and permission to be different and to understand that other people are supposed to be different from ourselves in order for us to all come here. So, what I love about human design is it really puts a lot of languaging into really reclaiming those parts about yourself that you've tried to stuff down. And I want to be really clear that one of the big misconceptions is people think that this is some sort of a religion or a belief system, when in reality, it's actually not. It doesn't take a stance on God whatsoever. It uses a lot of universal language. So it's more about you getting to know yourself, and what your belief system is independent of that, and you can apply it as needed.
Yes. I think for anyone who's listening who is a little bit skeptical, I so support that. And something that I want Jaime to touch on here in a second is about her own human design and some of the irony in how this lands. But I want to share a little bit about when Jaime first presented human design to myself. And I was like, what? Okay, like, we'll see. And it's been a minute. So we're going to talk a little bit about my human design. And then I think we're going to record another podcast that you'll get to know me more, because you have not really had an episode to learn more about me as a person. Saying that, I got my human design back from Jaime, and I felt like my jaw was on the floor, not just because of like a few of the things, but it was like this 80-page document that outlined so many facets of myself and put it into words that I'd never really been able to express. And it just felt like everything landed so hard. And I was like, okay, maybe this is just like I don't know, just a coincidence. Like maybe I'm just reading into it too much. So then Jaime sent my husband's. My husband's also like one of the most skeptical people ever. And we were driving together at the time, and I was reading his, and same thing. Both of us were like, jaw open. What the F is this? Like, some of the detail was just like so obscenely specific that we were like, how in the what is this? And it has been a game changer, even in some of the ways that we understand each other, and like why sometimes certain forms of communication land or don't land with each other. There's just like a different appreciation for what makes us different, and also what we can do to like make our puzzle pieces fit instead of trying to like force each other into being more like each other. So I have lived it enough to be like, okay, clearly I wouldn't have brought human design into Kindred Roots if I didn't believe that there was a significant impact that could come from human design into clinical work. And so I guess let's start there, Jane. Like, in your opinion, how did this come up for you? And what's your opinion of how the two play together well?
Yeah, so I mean, growth is one of my core values. It always has been. I honestly can't even tell you the first age I probably picked up the back of a magazine and did a personality test in the back of it. And so I've always just been naturally curious about who I am, why things are a certain way, and where I go in from there. I had reached a point where I had gotten into some extended, more somatic work because as a natural intellect, I had gone down every book, every therapy corner to learn about myself on a logical scale, which is how my brain wants to work. And certain things weren't changing and certain things were sticky. And I felt like I was working against myself. I started to get into the somatic side and feeling into things. And then even in that world, there's a lot that comes up in terms of, but why is that? But why do we do that? But why does that have to be the one way? And I just found myself sort of naturally questioning these things and trying to feel into them. And so I found I got myself to a point where I had kind of maxed out my ability to intellectualize things in therapy and talk through things. And I was still feeling in some ways worse than I had ever felt before. And so it had been circling around me in some of the spiritual communities. And I just went, okay, fine. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to listen to the fact that the universe has kind of brought this system around me and really go in. And as I did that, I was like, oh my gosh. And it really opened it up for me that I went, oh my gosh, the things that are the most sticky are actually my greatest gifts. And they're not changing because I can't change them. I need to change how I use them, but I can't get rid of them. It's like saying that I don't have a beating heart. If I get rid of it, I cease to exist. And so for myself, I found that I was naturally skeptical. So we'll speak of that soon in terms of the fact that that's actually my greatest gift is being a skeptic. But more than anything, there was a lot of things that just from an internal perspective, I went, oh my gosh, that's so true. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And it started to give me a path. It started to give me permission. It started to help me really look at where I was conditioned and in what environments I started to believe that this was not a gift, that these were not ways I was supposed to be. And it really became a blueprint for my healing at the deepest level of what was I really willing to shift in terms of maybe I was using it as more of a shadow place than a gift. And what are the things that I really needed to embrace about myself? And it helped me really look at, when was the first time that I started to shame this part about myself? What do I fear it says about me? Am I using this in integrity? Am I not using this in integrity? And it just helped me stop. So where I actually see, and my greatest calling to use this is to help people really reclaim these parts about themselves, look at their shadows and the place that they want to stuff down and go, no, I don't do that. No, that's not my gift. No, I don't, identify with that. And really look at like, what is it that feels so shameful about identifying with that gift? And so by dropping that, I truly believe this blueprint ends up skipping, well, for myself, decades of self-discovery where it was like trial and error. I felt like I was banging my head against the wall. I was spending a ton of money hiring people who had the answer for me when actually, in fact, the answer was inside me all along. And so it's not that I didn't learn things in those containers, but I walked out more confused than I went in sometimes. And that was a red flag for me. And I kept trying to think, well, if I just dedicate myself more, I'll be able to change this thing. And it's just fundamentally not true. And so it led me to really look at my own conditioning. We are family. So we have a lot of similarities in terms of ways that our family operated, which was great. And we can do all the intellectualizing of intergenerational trauma and where this started and whatever. But there's like a core wounding inside that you really have to go, okay, it's one thing to know what it is. It's another to really know how to heal it. And what I love about human design and therapy specifically is that I'm able to sit down and hold space and educate and help guide somebody through their blueprint. And then they can take the things that they learn in certain sequential orders into their therapy sessions with you guys and actually get to the root of the problem a heck of a lot faster instead of spending weeks, months, years spiraling around something that was never wrong with them in the first place. And so one of my greatest gifts or my greatest sun gift, my conscious sun gift is 63, which is doubt. And it's like, why? But why do we do things that way? But why does that have to be how this continues? And it's meant for collective growth. It's meant for what if we just went through life, not thinking we were as damaged as we actually are? You know, like what if we just went through, we radically accepted who we are, we radically accepted our pathway to healing, and then we just owned that.
Yes. And it's funny that you say that, because I think that if I had to, in like the shortest, most like basic way, summarize how I have watched human design be beneficial with clinical care with myself and my clients, it's two facets. One is radical acceptance of self, in the sense of like, I'll give some examples here. Like, I've had clients that come to me and they're like, I just don't understand why I'm never satisfied in work. Like, I don't understand why I constantly am looking for something different. I don't understand why I never can feel settled. Like, I just want you to help me learn how to be content, never making any changes. I want to learn how to be stable. Why can't I be stable? And we work on like, okay, well, like, where does this come from? What could this be? And then we get to a point where it's like, what if this is just fundamentally who you are? What if always being in a state of transition is not something that's wrong with you? What if it's something that is right with you? And the sooner we get on board with that, the sooner we can find fulfillment in a different way. And sometimes people are like, I can't see it. I can't see it. We go to human design, or I will get them to consult with Jaime, and suddenly this person who has very little background on paper about them, but has a birth date and a birth time, can almost articulate exactly what we've been talking about in therapy sessions. And it does something to this like validation of like, oh, like, okay, well, maybe there's some truth to this. And I think that sometimes the things that are the hardest to radically accept are the things that aren't generally approved on a societal level. And when you can have something literally handed to you in a document that just says, hey, by the way, this is just like who you are, for some reason, it makes it easier to validate that maybe it's not wrong with you if someone else can see it and not need to like dissect you for it. And then what happens is, okay, in Kindred Roots, for instance, a lot of people will give consent for, like, let's say it's my client that's going to Jaime. They'll give consent for Jaime and I to consult post sessions with Jaime. And Jaime will say, okay, these are the things that came up. These are the things that we talked about. This is where therapeutically it would be beneficial then to like reintegrate this. We come back and it's like, boom, we just have a different level of radical acceptance for the things that maybe would have taken longer to just like digest and be on board with. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. Number two is actually when it comes to like relationship base, is I think that when people see, again, in a document, themselves in a way that feels very like, oh my gosh, that's totally me. And then let's say that they see the document for another family member, a partner, whether that's like romantic, business, whatever, and they start to see where there's disconnect. If they're like, oh, I feel very deeply aligned to the thing that's been said about me. If my partner feels very deeply aligned to the thing that's being said about them, is there something here that makes it easier to actually look at the root of the problem versus the people as the problem and work through it? And I just think that there's this weird, like, permission to just radically accept the things that we will not change, because if we change them, we would be losing ourselves.
Yeah. And I find like what I really encourage in those readings and people as you come out of it is, again, my gift. Why? Right? If you don't like that thing, why? If you don't identify with it, maybe we don't overthink it. I don't often. If someone's like, I don't really think that's me, I always say it's like, if the universe, so it'll give you a really good idea of your like inherent gifts, the things that just come natural. There's an entire philosophical belief and, spiritual belief that you kind of came here. That's the Kabbalistic stuff coming in, where it's like your soul decided, hey, I want to really heal a karma around something. Mm-hmm. And so then it kind of sees an entire timeline of a life and goes, yep, that's going to be it. That's the nuclear family I'm going to choose. That's the path. These are the experiences, good, bad, and ugly, that are going to help me heal this karma, really help me identify these gifts and really help me through this. And then the universe basically just goes, you need some tools that you're going to probably need to access. And so it sends you in like this backpack of them. And maybe you haven't had to access that tool yet. It's something that's inherent in there, but you haven't had to access it. And I always say it's like take what resonates and leave the rest. It's a lifelong blueprint. So it's really good to always meet things with curiosity instead of contempt. People will see it. And I've done readings for people that are super close to me that get you can tell when there's the things that just land and the tears start to flow because it's like, oh my gosh, I have hidden that part about myself or shamed that part about myself. And maybe it's that they're using it as a low expression. Maybe they're just trying to pretend that tool doesn't exist at all. But in fact, those tools are so critical to like feeling that sense of fulfillment and really fulfilling that karmic healing purpose that you have here and now. So it's beautiful. Like I truly love it. And again, it's just, what does this bring up for you? This is such good stuff in your sessions.
Well, I think about that even just from a therapy perspective is like people sometimes I think they come to therapy and like we are going to just like have the answers, but realistically we're just like mirroring what's being given to us, right? Like this is actually one of the things that I have no problem kind of being a skeptic of therapy sometimes. And I say this as a therapist, which is we only see what you are giving to us. And so if it is never being challenged, or if I am never questioning how there's not more to this picture, I could be validating a behavior that is actually really unhealthy for you based on the narrative that you present to me about that behavior. And sometimes it is when you are being given something in a therapy environment that you vastly disagree with, that's not me, not a chance, whatever, that we actually hit a huge pocket of growth. Because whether it's true or not, your reaction to that reality and the way that we work out why you're having that reaction is where we actually find some of the meat that we need in order to like elicit change. And in some ways, I think that, you know, when I say like these human design readings like land for a lot of people, there's certainly parts that you're like, nah. And then it's not like, oh, okay. It's like, okay, I'm not claiming that you are lying to yourself. It might actually not be true. Can we talk about it? Like, why is it such a hard no? And as you work through it, we still find a lot of really, really helpful information, not as the therapist, but as the client. The client's like, why did I have such a visceral reaction to that? Let's find out. So it's kind of like opening a question and Pandora's box style, let's learn more about you. That doesn't feel like it's so generic that it has nothing to do with you. It's specific enough that it is you, but it also leaves room for doubt and questioning and really hard conversations that could like shine a light on things that are really hard to otherwise find.
Yeah. And that's a big Kabbalistic teaching with triggers, is that like when you're triggered by something, they ask you, the first thing you ever learn is you go, pause, what a blessing. And it's not a blessing that you're triggered. It's not a blessing that something came up. It's a blessing that it held up the mirror to a key to go deeper. Mm-hmm. And I'll often talk to people about, again, it's if you know, it's like an open door. So if you're a person who only ever wears the color black, you're like, I don't wear color. I don't like color. I only wear black. But then maybe you try on a green sweater one day and you're like, okay, this could be good. And then, but you're like, I will never identify with liking any other colors. But now that we've opened green, now you wear something with green and yellow. And then you're like, ooh, okay. It's really just like going deeper. Sometimes we're so rigid in our thinking that it's like, absolutely not. And maybe you won't even access your ability to see that gift of yourself until you remove a few layers and kind of get down in there. And that's great. But the pause, what a blessing, is like, oh, pause. I found a gatekeeper. I found a door. I found a block. I found something that's going to be a key if I can get really curious without judgment, without shame, without like, oh, wow, I shouldn't be triggered by that. Oh, wow, I've gone to school for 10 years. I'm a therapist myself. Why would I ever be triggered? Oh my gosh, it's such a gift to be triggered because it's a key to a door that is standing right in front of you that will like take you deeper. And the end goal is just pure acceptance of yourself.
I love that you just used the term gatekeeper. This comes up to something you and I talked about yesterday, where it's like sometimes there's like the language that's used in more of like the energy healing world and the language that's used in more of like the clinical therapeutic world, and how it's actually saying the same thing, but just with like different contexts. So for anyone who's like listening and not familiar, gatekeeper would be very similar to like internal family systems parts, firefighter or manager. And so if we're talking about a gatekeeper that's like, no, oh, what is that? In therapy, we'd be like, what part of you is coming up that has a reaction to this? In energy, it would be like, let's talk about what is gatekeeping this like level of healing. Yesterday, Jamie and I were talking about how two very common words that are used in both realms. One is in the therapy world, we would say unlearning, like we need to unlearn this behavior, we need to unlearn this understanding. Whereas in her work, it would be more framed as like deconditioning. Same, but different, only in language. And this is where we start to see that there is such a very clear intersect in these two ways of being, where I think that we've seen a huge shift in the therapy realm of like, therapy cannot just simply be intellectual. There needs to be somatic. And when we look at traditional ways of healing, even going to like indigenous ways of knowing, when we look at things like the medicine wheel, spirituality is a huge part of how we find identity. And when we say spirituality, a lot of people are like, oh, no, you can't put that in there. We're not talking religion. As you said at the beginning, we're talking about a belief in something bigger than you, that's outside of you. And there's something beautiful about that, because it is about accepting that there are things about life that are outside of your control. And if they're outside of your control, it's because they're bigger than you, and that's okay. And we need purpose and we need meaning. And sometimes these conversations help people tap into a realm of self that they've never had permission for, because that's such a taboo area of like, oh, I'm not religious, I'm not spiritual. Why? Why would you be so against saying you're spiritual? We all are. We all have some relationship to spirituality. All of it's different, and that's okay. But often we're saying the exact same thing. We're just saying it in different terms.
Yeah.
So there's
And
a
that's
lot
a
of
big
crossover.
thing. That's a big thing in the spiritual world that I really want to address here and now, is that when you can see spirituality, when you can see astrology, when you can see any sort of outside the box thinking or therapy, it's really understanding and tuning into what feels right in your body, because so much of it comes down to these very like esoteric teachings, and they use languaging that is more confusing, and you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this. And it's like, just breaking it down, right? It's just different words for the same thing.
Yeah.
Everybody has access to healing. There's no hire me for $50,000 and I'll tell you your 10-step plan to healing, because the fact is that it's always evolving. It's always growing. And like all the answers actually truly are inside of you. You just need people and trusted spaces where they can really hold you into that like curiosity, hold you through opening that door of that gatekeeper and not knowing what's on the other side. And that's where it's so powerful to like kind of strip away and not think about things in terms of like, oh, this is too much for me to comprehend. It's perfect, all perfect to me.
100%. So I think this would be a good time to give an example. Like, let's give a real example. So you talked earlier about like your skepticism or doubt. I think this would be a great example of a your what you perceive to be your greatest weakness actually being your greatest gift. So can we talk a little bit about what that looks like for you and how you perceived it before versus now?
Yes. So one of the big things in human design a big piece of the puzzle is your incarnation cross, which is effectively just what is your life theme? These include, like in astrology, we call them the big three: your sun, your moon, your rising. It's kind of that, right? It's your conscious and unconscious earth and your conscious and unconscious sun blended together. And it basically tells us what is the theme of your life that is going to present in different avenues, but essentially gives us sort of the map of where we're going and what are the gifts that are the strongest that are coming through. There's a ton of gifts sitting in different planets. They all have different influences. It's very, very nuanced and can go down. I try to make that as like digestible as possible. But in terms of my own side, so when you have a conscious sun gift, wherever it sits, that's 70% of your chart flows through it. It's arguably going to be the biggest external presenter, the biggest gift that you're going to access through most things. And mine is gate 63, which is doubt. And so this is constantly asking why. So my journey with this was that when I got into spiritual spaces, there is a component of them wanting to be seen as like somewhat of a guru, or that part does exist.
Yeah.
And so there's not often a love of being questioned why. And so, but I had questions of why, because that doesn't feel 100% for me. And it was a lot about like dropping any sort of judgment externally and really questioning like what is working for me, what is serving me, what's not. And so on the shame side, when I was really in a space or different places where I've been conditioned, is as a little girl, why do you have to ask why so much? Why do you have to fight it? Right? Early adult, like teens to early adulthood, a lot of like, well, you just struggle with authority. I'm like, I don't struggle with authority. I just ask why and I just want an answer. And now I'm doubting leadership because they won't give me the answer of just why. I'm not trying to fight it. I just want to know why we're doing that. And so much of my therapy journey later on became, why do I struggle with authority? Why do I struggle with power positions? Why do I get really triggered by this? And, trying to unlearn, like, well, I could just surrender. I can just let it go. I can just not ask why. I can just not care. But I was naturally skeptical. And then there's these parts of like, what's the natural skepticism holding me back from? And it wasn't that I'm skeptical. We had a grandmother who was insanely spiritual. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw a psychic, I was like 7 or 8 years old, like really, really young. Like we were raised incredibly open to this stuff. Why was I skeptical? I have 2 branches of my family. Our family, which is very, esoteric and very open-minded. And then my mom is deeply Catholic. My grandma was deeply Catholic. And so it's like, that plays a role into that skeptic side. And then what I realized through human design, or what I really took ownership of, is this is my greatest ability in terms of being able to ask why, being able to ask the questions. My next one is confusion. So that's like, it's doubt and confusion are my 2 conscious sides. Are you kidding me? Those sound like the worst gifts ever. But it's basically, what's beautiful is, of course, I can use doubt internally. This would be like a shadow expression. This would be like a very low energy expression of using this gift for a force of bad, or questioning to question, right? Or planting seeds of doubt for my own benefit. And then confusion is really being able to, the gift of it is being able to navigate something that is very confusing, that has a lot of, like, I have a lot of questions swirling around it, and just kind of get the answers that I need and either decide, is this for me, is this not, and move forward from there. But I was really using this in such a negative expression where I was having doubt and confusion about myself. It's what actually brought me in. I've been doing business coaching since 2014. And I have gone through all these different career things. I've always helped people out. I've always had clients throughout, but I've really been like, I don't identify as a coach. I'm naturally skeptical of the coaching industry. Meanwhile, I've been doing this, helping people, but it was because what I was doing is I'm taking my greatest gift and turning it inward and self-doubt, instead of what the gift is supposed to be used, which is for collective growth. The entire premise, the entire theme of that gift is saying, why do we do what we do as a society, as a collective, and what's actually serving us anymore? What's outdated? What do we need to let go of in order to really think outside the box? And so many of my other gifts in there are very outside the box thinking. There's tons of leadership. That's my other side of my big 4, is like all in leadership. And it hit me in a time where actually I had been a leader for so long naturally. Our company's literally called Bossy Pants. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? And so it's like, I just wanted to be like, I want to do feminine, flowy surrender. I don't want to be the leader anymore. I want someone else to lead me. And then I'm just like sitting there. I'm like, why do I feel helpless and lost, more lost than I've ever felt in my life? And it's because, have I had negative expressions of leadership in those growing pain times where I'm trying to find my voice? Of course I have. But more of it came down to, it's leadership with integrity. So I am massively triggered by leadership in non-integrity, because I myself have had leadership with non-integrity. And so having to heal that is the real life of like saying it out loud. I have been a leader not always in integrity, which has made me reject wanting to be a leader now, not recognizing that 20 years later, my leadership looks entirely different. Right. And so it's like just healing that is a part of me, healing that I'm never going to be the feminine surrender baking quinoa muffins with my babies. I love that. That's a great, like, beautiful, but I would not feel like I have really tapped into my full purpose if that was the only way that I got to show up.
Yeah. And I think that it's really interesting because your doubt in business coaching, what's always been helpful as someone who's received your business coaching is that if I just present something to you and I'm like, this is just the way it is, and you ask why, I'm forced to be like, I don't actually know. And it's been the thing that's been like a circuit breaker in my own professional growth, because things that most people are like, yeah, sure, especially if you went to like another coach who's not going to question your industry, you're like, I'm not questioning your industry, I'm just questioning why, I just want to understand it. And then I'm like, I don't even understand it, like, I guess we should find out. And the confusion is like a representation of the people around you. So then if you're like, I'm lacking clarity on this, I'm like, if you're lacking clarity, then other people are lacking clarity. I need to be able to come back to the forefront and make sense of it. Like, these things are so important and integral to why you're so good at doing what you do. And I've had the privilege of being with you, not just as a business partner, consultant, client, etc., but also as your family member for all of, my life. And I've also been able to turn around and challenge you when you are putting yourself internally into a spiral of self-doubt and be like, what is this? What are we doing right now? And question it back. But again, having this understanding for you also means that when I'm supporting you, I have language to then frame it in a way that you can receive it and have the whole conversation happen in like a matter of 2 sentences.
Yeah.
It's like a trigger point, like, oh, it's that thing's happening. That thing's happening again. Like, yep. I need to work on that. Something you and I talked about before starting to record is that you gave me my reading so long ago and I've just like not had it in a while. So we are absolutely going to just record a whole podcast where Jamie's going to do a full reading of my chart, and I'm going to let you guys all in to hear it. Pray for me. I'm a little nervy, but that's okay. It'll be good. I'm all for it. But for today, I guess, Jamie, remind me where's my big four, or what are the things that you think today would be important to cover?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what I love is that you have been so open about your experience with your practice. You are so radically authentic that this is going to be such a great, because people don't know me. People do know you. And so being able to look at your life theme, and again, I can't wait until we record a deeper dive on this and really get a chance to know how these things have played out in your life and see. And I'm so excited to go through. So your incarnation cross, this is your life theme, is called the left angle cross of separation. It's actually the second variation of it. To be more specific, there are some like nuances. There's some of them have different versions. But the big theme of this incarnation cross and of your life is going to be going to the beat of your own drum, finding your own rhythm in your path, and really doing things your own unique way. And so you have 4 gates. So you have gate 5, gate 35, gate 47, and gate 22. So I'll kind of explain what these mean. So gate 5, for example, is called fixed rhythms. And so this is all about knowing the right timing, the right rituals, patterns, things that have to happen, but creating your own unique routine. So this is actually your conscious sun. So this is your 70% of the energy that flows through your chart, flows through this idea that you will know the right timing. You're going to respect that timing. Timing doesn't need to make sense for anyone else. The pattern, the ritual, the routine, how you choose to live your own life doesn't need to fit what other people do. It's you're in tune with your timing, your rhythm, and what you want to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so your conscious earth. So what's beautiful about the chart too is that it splits up and shows us on a conscious side how your energy field presents, and also on an unconscious side. So we can see some of those shadows. I often find the trigger points for people are in what sits in their unconscious side of their chart. But it's because we're either stuffing it down. Somebody in there, some part of the internal family system is going, you don't get to see that. No, we're going to keep a door in front of that side. And so your earth with that, what keeps you grounded when you're using that is progress. So it's really about, so gate 35 is all about like embracing change, experimenting with things, but balancing it with like living in the now. So it is a little bit of like, we're just doing things. Sometimes it's like, shooting in the dark, but it's just, we're trying to progress forward. So that desire for progress is what helps you really present in a way of like, I'm going to find a new routine, a new rhythm, and the timing, the whatever that works for me.
Yeah.
And now on your unconscious side, we've got gate 47 is your sun. And so this is realization. This is all about being very insightful and knowing the right time to have an aha moment and help someone else, which is 0% surprised that this is the like path that you've chosen. But it is like the fact that one of your biggest gifts, and on an unconscious level, so it's like the energy field just that you naturally are, whether you like it or not, is this person who can facilitate these massive transformational aha moments for people and then help them like with the wisdom to kind of like keep pushing through to find what does this mean for you. And then last but not least, what keeps you grounded in that, your unconscious earth, is this is openness. So it's actually just like your own emotional expression, leading to deeper connections. It's a bit of vulnerability, but it's just like on an energetic level, you are so open and so vulnerable about who you are that it encourages that to come forward in other people, those aha moments, right?
Oh my Lanta.
And so with this, the big part of your life journey is meant to be that you're supposed to like embrace that kind of like squiggly path of self-discovery and really sharing those gifts with the world. And a lot of this is a superpower of like cutting through the noise to find your authentic path. And when we talk about human design in partnerships and how does this work when people are together, you have safe, trusted people, is that if my gifts are to question, why do we do that? But why not do it? Why does it have to be that way? But why? And then helping lead that conversation allows you, and when we go together, we get access to gifts that we don't have independently. It holds space for you to be able to have those, oh, okay, I'm going to really radically accept that I want to go by my own drum here, right? Like it's important in all aspects, no matter what your gifts are, to have people around you that really wholly stand for you being authentic with you. But a big part of your purpose here, a big part of this life theme, is finding deep, authentic connections with your chosen family who accept you as a person who will never fit the status quo. In fact, will often challenge the status quo. But on a universal level, we need more people like you because it changes the way that very traditional systems operate.
Well, this is the most heartwarming thing ever. I mean, clearly, like, on a surface level, like, I think that's literally defines what Kindred Roots is, and what I want for Kindred Roots always is I'm not shy about saying that Kindred Roots is a family. It really is. And it is my chosen family in so many ways. This team is exceptional, and everyone signs up to be part of this family because they don't want to do things the traditional way in our field. I think it's actually kind of funny because I didn't really make this connection before, but when I was talking earlier about like clients that come in, they're like, why do I always make changes? Why do I never feel settled? Like, that is literally me. I think prior to Kindred Roots is the longest job I've ever had. I used to, like, if you look at my resume, I had jobs and I almost routinely at a 12-month mark was like, okay, time for change. Okay, time for change. And I just knew I had to move on. And none of those decisions ever led me the wrong direction, but I just knew I wasn't supposed to stay there anymore. And in the growth that we've had, majority of it has happened when I'm like, I can't explain to you why this needs to happen. I can't explain to you why we need to move into a bigger office. I can't explain to you why we need to hire more people right now. I just know that we have to. And I have learned to not have doubt in that, but trust the like intuitive part of me that's like, it just is right. Like it's just time. And hire people around me that bring things in like doubt or confusion so that I don't become impulsive in it, but have enough people around me to question like, okay, I'm not going to like shut down what it is that you're saying we need to do, but can we just like logistically speak about how this is going to happen? And that's like the balancing piece. So it's really interesting because yeah, all of those things absolutely align, and that's even just from a business perspective. I could reframe this into personal life too. Things like not having kids yet. I'm the last one in my, direct family system to not have kids yet. I'm in the longest term relationship and marriage. And I've had a lot of pushback as to why we don't have kids yet. And it's just not time. It's just not time. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to like share more. And I totally own that. Like, I have no shame. I've always been open about who I am, but especially on like this podcast and the things that some people on this team have shared so vulnerably, I am doing a disservice by not doing the exact same thing. And so I think that this is just such a beautiful way of making that happen, because you can invite parts to come up that I probably would skip over because it just is. But sometimes we don't know what just is. We're just living the life that we know to live. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we're going to come back and record another one. But for today, I think it would be super helpful for people to know what services you're offering through Kindred Roots in general and what they can do to work with you. And maybe like a little tidbit sample of more to come. So I'll open the floor. What do people need to know about you and how they can work with you?
Yeah. So I right now offer human design readings through Kindred Roots website. You can book online. It's all in there. If for whatever reason, the times that are available don't work for you, obviously just reach out to a member of our team and we will try to get everything coordinated for you. I do try to have really good work-life boundaries because I do have babies, but I understand that other people have jobs. And so we do need evenings, weekends sometimes. Yeah, so I offer that, and we can do readings I always love starting with a foundation about who you are, and then we can really work into partnerships, kids. If you really want to learn what the number one that I find is people will listen to, like, see their own chart. We hold a lot of space for where did that conditioning start? And then it's almost an immediate that they go, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this to my kids. And that was mine too. Like, it's like, how do I make sure I don't condition them so that we give them the best start? And so we can work through that. If you're having confusion about what is my purpose, there are certain parts of your design that say that your purpose needs to be fulfilled or is most likely to feel fulfilled through your career. So if you are finding yourself in this like lost or stagnant place where you're like, I just feel like it's supposed to be something better, like, same. I was in that same spot, thriving real estate career. By all means, the ego was like, girl, this is good. And it was just not the full spectrum of it. And so I offer career clarity sessions where we can really look into, because so much of getting your life into alignment is figuring out what is not working for you and where do we have to shift perspective on. We have to kind of clear out things in order to let in the good. So we do that. We're actually in the works of bringing forward a business coaching program, which has been long desired. We've always done pockets. We've done a lot of one-on-one, but as two serial solopreneurs, we do understand the power of having a good, intimate, trusted group of people that can really have your back and really provide the support. We'll be doing a plethora of little retreats, both in person, virtually. I would love to bring forward, and so it probably will be in the works this fall, somewhat of a like 4 to 6 week series to really get deep on embodying these parts of your human design, because I would love to see everybody leave behind these parts that they're just not resonating with themselves, leave it behind in 2024, start a whole new year. And so, yeah, so a lot of it will kick off with that foundation call. If you are a follower of Kindred Roots, both online, through their newsletter, obviously, as these programs start to roll out, you guys will be the first to know.
Yes. I'm so excited. This has been such a long time coming, and we're finally like making the time to put the pedal to the metal and make it come to fruition. Honestly, for anyone who is just feeling stuck, whether it's in therapy, life, any of the things, I highly recommend just booking a session with Jaime. Start with a human design reading, and from there you'll probably access like what are the things that you really need to focus on, and find that either you want to work with one of our therapists or just continue working with Jaime as needed. Something I've seen a lot of this summer specifically that we are going to have available here very soon is Jaime to support couples who are in business together, because there's so many like dual components to that. And Jaime, again, not only a business coach and a human design reading guru. Oh, I use the term, I take it back. And then just life coaching and all things, but she's also owns a business with her husband. So there's just a different understanding there. Basically, this is supposed to help bring space for people who don't know where else to go. And our goal as a group at KR is just to make it easier to go to one place and be like, this is my issue, help. And we will guide you. We'll hold you through that. So yeah, check out more on our website, follow us on social media or newsletter, and you'll hear all of the updates as they happen. And Jaime and I will be back to record my human design reading. My guess is in the next week or two.
Yes, we're going to get this on the books because you can't run away from it.
I can't run away.
And there's never been a better person to hold you in your sharing your story than someone who's been there to watch it go down.
Correct. Unfortunately, I can't evade any of the truth when you have been witness on all fronts. Yes. I'm for it. You can have it all.
I'm so excited.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Love you.